Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Learning How to Write with Mr. Sando. That's me. Today we're going to be talking about race strategies, which is a writing strategy for middle school kids to write a cogent paragraph and work on that. So what we're learning today is how to use a shaping sheet to create a race paragraph. That means that you can utilize the race strategy to create your paragraph. You can create idea chunks for citing and explaining evidence, and evaluate your writing through the race rubric. When we start out with the shaping sheet, what that looks like is, you can see here, is it provides a skeleton. It provides you with the restatement, the answering, the citation and evidence in chunks, so that you can put together a nice essay or a nice paragraph for to answer the essay question. So as you can see on this, there's different places where you put the information within that, and that provides as your rough draft for your race paragraph. Next, I can give you an example of what a race paragraph looks like, or how you can construct one. The issue that I use is the Vietnam War. That's part of the chapter that comes in the class later on when you get to high school, using the essential question. And the question was why did some Americans oppose the Vietnam War? And so I want to restate that into the race paragraph introduction. And so the question is why do some Americans oppose the Vietnam War? And what I'm restated as is, during the war in Vietnam, there were events that led some to oppose the war. That's how I restate the question. And then I go on and use a second sentence to answer the question. And in that second sentence, I say Americans felt they were being misled about the success of the war effort, and that it was winding down when it wasn't, and that made them oppose the war. So that was my answer to the question. So I've restated the question and I've answered the question. Now, moving forward in the essay, we're going to have three idea chunks that we're going to add to this paragraph. The first idea chunk is an idea that I pulled from lesson 2. And I say in lesson 2, it states that in 1967, General Westmoreland was reporting that he saw the light at the end of the tunnel. That's my quote. And then I'll explain what that means. And I explain that this means that he was optimistic about the Army's effort and the war was going well, and told that to the people. Okay, so that's my idea chunk. Then I move on and talk about my second idea chunk, which is in lesson 2. It also says that in December 1968, the Vietnamese Army launched a massive attack called the Tet Offensive against American targets throughout the country. And that showed, my explanation is, that showed America that the enemy was strong and determined, and it shook their confidence in what was reported earlier. Okay, so those were my first two idea chunks. Now my third idea chunk comes from lesson 3. And in lesson 3, it stated that President Nixon sent troops into Cambodia to attack communist bases in 1970, and it angered many Americans. That came from the text. And then I go on to say, this shows that after being told that the war was going well and it was going to be over soon, it was being expanded, and it turned people against it. Okay? So those were 3 idea chunks. The first idea chunk was Westmoreland's light at the end of the tunnel quote. The second chunk was the Tet Offensive chunk. And the third chunk was the Cambodia invasion and expanding the war. So then you go back through this and you restate the answer to the question in your conclusion. And I come up with, during the war in Vietnam, some Americans turned against the war because they felt they were being lied to about the success of the war and when it would end. So that's kind of the idea of how we do a race paragraph, and it's about using that shaping sheet to create your chunks and create a good outline that you can share. And then you want to evaluate it, and you want to use this rubric here. And basically, if you look at the third column there, it says that you want to clearly state the question as a topic sentence. The reader should know what to expect. That's the R in the restate. In answering the questions, the question should be answered fully and correctly. For your evidence, you should correctly cite adequate evidence, which is in lesson 1, this happened. In lesson 2, they said this. And then your explanation will start with, this shows, or for example, or this means, and you're explaining why that piece of evidence supports your answer. Okay, so the thing is that's how you get to your point, the point of being successful with your race paragraph. So checking our learning, did you learn how to use a shaping sheet to create a race paragraph? Are you going to be able to use the race strategy to create that paragraph? Can you create idea chunks to put in your paragraph? And can you evaluate that race writing with the rubric that we discussed? So that's the lesson in essence. So go ahead and write your race paragraph. We'll see you on the flip side.